running this Societal event. We're like, Ricardo and I were talking about this idea, I think, in Dubai, in this April. And we were like, why don't we actually try to make a conference that expand the idea of design beyond just Web3. And we thought it would be great if we can have people from outside the Web3, but still in the company that we can actually work together and partnership with and maybe build something together and get insights from so that we can build a product that's actually used for like scientists and researchers out there and who are solving also on their own different types of real problems with other tools and needs. So we're like, we reached out to a few of our close network. So that's why Ji-san and who's coming to join us for this panel session. And I'm kind of excited to see what their thoughts are about the things we're building and what we're trying to create here. So we'll touch more about the R&D side of design today within this panel because this is what you're more concerned about. So my first question will be, what specific R&D challenges do traditional research entities face, and how could blockchain technology solve this problem? We'll start with Shelley.
Yes, thank you. I think there are several challenges that research entities face, and I think maybe that we're operating in too many silos. So earlier we talked about how the number of scientific publications is skyrocketing, but that is maybe an inflated view of progress because we have so much knowledge being produced, but it's being produced in parallel. And when we often think about things running in parallel, we think, great, it's going faster, it's smarter. But in this particular case, we have too many silos, and you have like multiplication and repetition of some of the same ideas that are being produced. So I would say that, one of the things that we should be tackling now is using the DeSci landscape to foster collaboration so that we have more serial progress, as backwards as that may sound.
Yeah, I would like to discuss more about kind of fundamental problem of the research and the development of new drug discovery in pharmaceutical. Because in order for a new substances or agent to become fully commercialized, it will take at least 10 to 15 years and require at least 3 to 5 billion US dollars. Yes. So yeah, it requires a lot of money and time for a new drug discovery and commercialization. So recently the society really think about how to revolutionize this process, how to cost reduction and enhance the efficiency. So the new AI technology are adopted, especially for the new substance or agent discovery, including Google. But we still need a lot of time for clinical trial phase 1 to 3. So when I heard about the blockchain technology design movement, I think the features of this new technology will help a lot for cost reduction and the efficiency in the drug discovery.
So I'm from the pharma industry, and especially I focus the development section, like R&D, which has most cost using the clinical trials, and in that sense that there's a silo between the pharma competition, but it is not that we does not know about this kind of system. It's about the data itself is power to pharma company, and it should be more openness to willing to set on to share the data first. But as we have a business, so it's really difficult to have opening my data first. So there's will be continuous competition. So what I thought about the blockchain system, how we leverage, and during the clinical trial development process, it may be difficult because it has to be controlled infrastructure as a clinical trial design to see the effective and the safety of new substance. So in that case, I'd recommend from the blockchain infrastructure from the real data use collection as a big data generation section first, which other a device already started as collecting the patient data. And then that in that case, patients have a more data ownership and the power to share. But actually at the farm, in perspective, there's already a lot of those movement to have a big data generation with the cloud system. So there should be more clear advantage to use the blockchain system as decentralized, and which means that it should be bigger and larger data set than the cloud sources. Because when patient-driven data always valued, but it can be selection bias when we find the clinical signal. So there's good things and bad things when the patients have a more power, ownership, and uploaded. But as a pharma industry perspective, rather than control the infrastructure, there may be bias to have a proper decision when we have invested so much money under something. So to minimize these selection bias issues, decentralized system should have a collect more wider global data set with the support from the data ownership on each patient level. So I think that you guys should educate more about what's the minimum will have a data sovereignty, data power, and then make some campaign movement to share the data set for the global wide level. Unless then there's a metadata who has more data, and then there's a many company who already have a full infrastructure to have their own data set, and then the company may choose at this moment will choose those data set which is more reliable to have a future decision.
Yeah, I think in addition to all the things that have been said here, one thing where blockchain or design in general could help is basically bridging that valley of death in between when you create something in the lab and you want to bring it to the market. It's really easy. It's really not easy to do so. You want to ideally accelerate that process as fast as possible, trying to get to tester hypothesis. And so something where maybe some can help is there's this theme of accelerating the time it takes to actually do this. And so we've seen some recent example, Molecule and some other players in the space where they're helping basically people get funding faster. And we've done a few experiments on ResearchHub as well, where you can get funding instead of taking it a couple of years to get your grant for your first study. You can get up to a couple of weeks after you register your study. So ideally that could help with R&D. Some other things that we've seen, we've been in talk with a couple companies, R&D and Pharma, that want to do some research. Maybe they don't want to do it in-house, and so they want to outsource some of that research. And so we've seen some interesting companies opening badges, for example, on ResearchHub, as you guys did, for example, and outsourcing some of the literature reviews of the research process to an external party, and they trust the system, the resupply system, the one that we will build. And so I think that's just a couple examples of things that are not working in the best possible way right now, and hopefully Insight can do something for that.
Yeah, I mean, before we had this panel session, I had discussion with both of the panels from the Web 2 about their thoughts. So I wanted to tell them more about what is CSA and how it works, and then I wanted to hear their thoughts before we have this discussion. And Jay told me about things, problems that current method actually faces in terms of transparency difficulty of sharing the data and also inefficiency in terms of cost, like having to go through all this clinical data in different market every time the pharmaceutical product actually launches is a big overhead that's blocking innovations from happening. Also, Jason told me that, as she just mentioned, how we need to make it a big enough movement for us to actually take over as actual infrastructure that runs this clinical development and research kind of phase. So I thought that was a very good point, that we need to make it into a big enough like idea, like a narrative, so that everybody kind of pays attention to it, so that we can make this actual change happen with large corporates. That in that way, that we can actually make this into actual infrastructure.
And it's not going to be like a one-size-fits-all approach. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be companies that are going to embrace this more than others. It really depends on like how your business operates and so on. But like this has to be an alternative, like something that is out there, an available alternative for like companies that want to embrace blockchain to use it. So we have to make that effort, not for every company, but like for the companies that want to embrace this approach, just to be there for them to use it.
Thankfully, I think some of the current companies are very, very open about new technology and like trying to do something with the blockchain. That's why you both of you are here. So if you want to add on to what Ricardo said, feel free.
So R&D is really big session. It's like a miles way about discuss about R&D. You should focus the specific target that to find the business needs. For as a traditional farmer, especially to the development person, actually I'm here because my CEO is interested in me here, but I will not take any risk to have a new infrastructure until regulatory body is fully comfortable or make us mandatory to use blockchain system. Because until then, we have a well-organized cloud system with internal QC that regulatory body approves. So that's the reason that it will be an opportunity to get close with the actual farmer business works, that how you can see the value to blockchain in end user perspective. Because end user perspective, blockchain is too difficult and the non-IT specialist. So it is, unless blockchain or not, and the user feel comfortable about the UI interface, then we will choose those products and those systems. But to make a valuable about the blockchain, you should define what is make a benefit to the engage for the people. Because at this moment, cloud system working so well. So even though we said that data transparency about the blockchain, I cannot see a picture at this moment. I believe that you guys will do a better job on that. And then as the working generation changes, Web3 0.0 will be just a natural thing that we will follow.
Any points?
So recently, one of a new strategy for the clinical trial is called, one of the approaches. It is called basket trial, because one size fits all approach. Everybody knows that it has a lot of limitations because of the different heterogeneity for every people. And also because next generation sequencing becomes more affordable for everybody. So this kind of multiomics and genomic analysis also applied for many kind of research. But one of the big problem for pharmaceutical company to start a new clinical trial is that because in this age, still there are over 10, 20 rare diseases. There is no curable. It is not curable at this moment. But the problem is the number of total patients globally for each rare disease is very small. That's why a pharmaceutical company hesitate to invest to start a new drug discovery for the rare diseases. But for the basket trial, this is the concept. It's more focused on biomarker instead of diseases itself. It means that if there is a potential drug X for specific gene mutation Y, then if the certain diseases have a similar gene mutation Y or same gene mutation for different type of cancer types or diseases, then we can apply the same drug for different type of diseases. So in this approach, we can also start a new clinical trial because it can be secure more number of total patients. So I think this kind of blockchain technology also help a lot abundantly for this new approach with the transparency and each way of collecting more patients for this group, because this kind of new drug discovery for a new drug require a lot of multi-center trial in multinational gathering. So I think this blockchain technology also will help a lot this kind of approach in these days.
It's great to hear the pros and cons of adopting blockchain technology to existing R&D processes. Hippocrates, I think, we actually began first as a community for rare disease patients to share their, about their symptoms and how they treat themselves like every day, so that could be shared on blockchain. And then we went more towards the general healthcare data side. So it's very interesting to see like where your thoughts are coming from in that perspective. If you don't mind, I'll go over to the next question, which is, what are the main barriers to adoption? Well, I think you already mentioned this. So the question was, what are the main barriers to adoption of blockchain R&D? But we'll skip this one, and I'll go over to, how do you envision traditional scientific institutions and these type projects collaborating in the near future?
I think in order to facilitate the collaborations, as we discussed slightly earlier today, was that we really do need to increase the narrative around all the positive benefits that blockchain could take. I think maybe one of the aspects that could be promoted is the fact that blockchain would enable greater citizen participation into projects, and that would facilitate the larger data sets that would be required and needed by larger pharmaceutical companies to answer and tackle some of the bigger questions. So I suppose it's getting the involvement of the citizen, and that also addresses the end user component as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the obstacles for medical society is that, to be honest, we don't have much understanding and information about blockchain technology. Next generation sequencing, gene editing, and AI, this kind of technology are well spread out to the medical society, but blockchain, we have some precautions because it is a little bit have a big link with coin and some scientists think that this is kind of gambling, so they have a negative impact about the blockchain technology. So I think the more education and like more friendly conference would be required for medical society to adopt and have better understanding of this technology.
Yeah, please help us.
So I was not familiar with the blockchain system, but while I'm preparing this panel talk, I learned that the major difference and the advantage for the blockchain system is that data ownership for patient level. They're truly decentralized from the decentralized end. So to move on to the next achievement, what was the major barrier until now from the academia and the company side is that data is power, so we do not want to share. As a scientist lab, they may want to share to have a bigger achievement, but in the end, even doctors from the hospital, we know that it is better to collaborate and merge the data set, but everyone wants to have a more power or control during their collaboration. So blockchain system can be driven by the patient level. As Shelley mentioned, that the most important thing is that from the citizen level that they ask for the academia, they ask for pharmaceutical company that I want to share and contribute to my data level throughout the blockchain system. So others who may have a more conflict about this collaboration make them to share their data set. And in the end, even though we have a centralized data set, it comes from the patient level. So as I mentioned, that to have a enriched design level, each patient know about what the meaning of the data sharing, how we can contribute, but it should be a larger data set. So there are the rare patient advocacy group from the Korea and outside the global level, and there's many the hematology or breast cancer running group, and then there will be more opportunity to collaborate rather than real science, the patient level, they understand this movement to do it. So it will be beneficial to make scientists and pharma company more collaborate, open to collaborate.
Yeah, I want to go back to Jay's point because I think it's important. When you say how do you see institutions and blockchain projects collaborate, I think something that blockchain projects are suffering from is our reputation, which isn't the greatest. It's just like being proven 2 minutes ago, and so something where I think we could really benefit from is actually being deemed as like legit by institutions. And so every time like we get new users on ResearchHub, they're asking us about the whole process. How does it work? With a coin, what is this? Am I being scammed? What are you guys doing? And so it really helps, like telling them, hey, look, we've funded people from Stanford, from Harvard, from Purdue. So like, I think the role of the institutions, like in DeSci, who want to work together, is literally giving like a stamp of approval to the legit projects and be like, hey, we'll work with them. They're doing something where they're really helping the ecosystem. They're not, extracting value. They're actually adding value. And so this is something that we're really pushing, at least internally. We're really trying to get into as many institutions as possible because at the end of the day, researchers are skeptic by design, I guess. And so they ask a lot of questions, rightfully so. And so I think it's really important to have the backing of the institutions for DeSci to succeed. So I think it's kind of like a prerequisite for us. If we don't get the institutions to buy in, it's going to be really hard for us. Especially for us, like we're working in the publishing space. Like we really need to get the universities on board, otherwise the researchers are not gonna use our product. So that's one way where I think they can help us. What we can do is provide more value for them. So we're trying to make peer review more equitable, more fair for people. And so hopefully institutions will recognize the value of like having some of their students earn money for their contributions and will like to buy in this. So I think it's a mutual approach where we need to give some to get their reputation and their stamp of approval on what we're doing.
Actually, I'm curious, Shelley and Eduardo, you are working on peer reviews and publishing. You work with a lot of academia, like academic institutions, I think. What's their approach? What's their thoughts when you approach them with your idea? Are they open to it? Like how things are going on that front?
So I've had conversations with my colleagues because they're like, Shelley, what are you doing? And I think at that level, it comes down to the education. We have had other persons in NobleBlocks, for example, address like decision makers at university levels, and I think it also comes down to the funding institutions as well. So we have to remember that there's a multi-stakeholder system here, and the universities and the researchers would probably, come round if they felt that it wouldn't affect their chances for funding, and because it's all tied together. So I think that the conversations we need to start having are going to other funding institutions, and not just the ones that are coming from Web3. They need to come from already other recognized sources. So I think to make it short, or to try to shorten it up, is most people don't really know we exist. And I think that is the biggest challenge right now. So when you introduce a concept that is completely new, you have to start from scratch. And the way that we know to convince people and influence people is to give them some parallel examples to build on. So I think that's actually our position at the moment.
Yeah, for us, I think the latest example we had, like conversations with institutions, is when we did a round of funding on ResearchHub, and so we actually had to interface with the institutions of the researchers, and so we had to talk to Purdue, we had to talk to Harvard, and so on, and like realizing that Purdue was like, oh yeah, okay, well, accept crypto was already kind of shocking, and so they are actually open to it. You just have to show them how it works and so on. And obviously, it helps if you build an infrastructure to make it super easy for them to accept this and just like buy into this to the system. But it looks like they're pretty open. Again, like we're trying to go into the same direction where we want to make research better, and so there's no reason for them not to buy in, unless they see that something is not quite clicking in the way we're operating. So you need to be transparent. You need to show exactly how funds are being dispersed, like why people are earning this money and so on. But as long as you do that, we've found most institutions to be quite open actually.
So this was conversations you had to fund research projects. Is that's
exactly,
correct? Yeah. So I think if universities can see that there's another source of funding, that's kind of nice for them, right? It's something very attractive. It's easy to go through. It's like honey, right? We go through it. But when it comes to the peer review and the legitimacy of the actual publication, because that lays down the foundation for future funding from other sources, I'm still wondering, and I know ResearchHub has been it's been around longer than NobleBlocks, so you have had far more conversations than we have had. But I still get the impression that it is going to be a question of legitimacy. Like, will researchers trust us enough to make sure that their reputations stay intact? And I wonder how many conversations you've had around that. I'm trying to do it.
No, it's okay.
No, yeah, we had a few, again, with former companies. What we saw they were interested in was basically outsourcing some research, and so obviously they want to see the credentials of the people doing the research. But in the same way as a project like Hippocrates, for example, has vetted the people that did the research for them when they open up that bounty and then did the research of I think the former companies are going to do the same. So it's kind of up to us to actually create an environment where they're going to trust us, because obviously if you fill your platform with people that have no reputation, and you're trying to get people to use your system, and what you produce is not up to par, then you're kind of burning your chance. And so it's a matter of getting the first early adopters to use blockchain, to use your system, and then that kind of validates what you're doing, and then other more people are going to know it. So I think it's just a matter of time, and obviously having enabling that by having the right people and accepting the right people into your community and your ecosystem.
May I just comment? Because it is really important to have a good reputation in this blockchain infrastructure, including funding and peer review. Because as funding, as you mentioned, is a honey. When we get it, there is no objection. They're glad to have a blockchain system. But actually, when I see the funding from the DAO, but still there will be people's decision criteria that what actually funding. And then it is not like a traditional way that there's a central monitor funding system. It is decentralized, but still there will be rationale to funding something and how it works, and that it really helps scientific area when Daewoong decentralized is good sometimes, but they will be less specialized on certain area. So there will be good things or bad things, and as a scientist, we think that there's a good peer review system as a blockchain system, but who will guarantee that peer is good? And usually standard system, that peer was recognized by the standard medical society or standard scientific society, and then it maintained the system with the impact factor as well. So when we are open to new system, there will be really transparency, as you mentioned, and when people work together, even though it's blockchain, there will be conflict and the competition. So from the standard point of view, if you make with democracy, openness, and really true value, imaginary in the blockchain system, it will work well, then people will just follow. But until then, there will be challenges and the collaboration, and then. But it's a good thing to see that actual global-wise you are come together in design and talk about this, and I believe that you will on good hands.
I mean, a good points, all of you. I agree with the fact that we need to kind of build up the reputation, legitimacy of doing projects through blockchain. But I can see like there are American institutions that are receiving now donation through crypto, like American universities, and they're even investing crypto through their endowment fund. And I can see there are like little bits of changes and attempts to embrace the new idea. But I think Shelly and I had this conversation just before how like adaptation takes. It doesn't happen step by step. It's more like there's a one point, then it just has a quantum jump somehow. So I think we are waiting for that moment of mass adaptation of what we're doing, and then before everybody knows about it, it'll just happen. It's like AI with ChatGPT. We didn't use it until 2 years ago. I was doing translation myself, and now never do it anymore. Yeah, one more comment, yeah.
I think many of us know that AI has been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I hope we're a little faster than AI.
Yeah, I mean, like Lisa has been around for 2 years now. Like the narrative itself.
A bit more. A bit more, but yeah, it'll take time. And then I think it's all about like having one big success story that are basically going to guarantee that reputation is going to be like, okay, if they did that, then I think I'm going to buy in as well. So that's what it takes.
Yeah, I believe so. We're going to wrap it up here. Thank you all the panel speakers for participating, and thanks for your insights once again. Round of applause for them. Thank you.